Cain, welcome to the Moxon Weighs In podcast. I'm so excited to get to chat with you today, and I would love for you to just introduce yourself as you are right now. I know Steve has known you for a really long time. He has a lot of respect for you, a lot of good things to say about you and your fight career and just the man that you are. But I would love for you to just introduce yourself now. Maybe I know a lot has changed in your personal life. I know a lot has changed in your professional life. So catch us up. Give us the update on who Cain is.
Yeah, I guess my name's Cain. I'm 29 years old. Um, I'm the owner and director of Empowerment, which is a youth-based sort of program um, for young people in Geelong. We combine boxing with acceptance and commitment therapy. So we're all about sort of getting in tune with your body and noticing different thoughts and feelings and things like that, which I know can be very scary for some young people. But we sort of tune in a way that is, yeah, sort of young person appropriate. And we've got a lot of male workers. So yeah, I'm also a father, um, and yeah, lived in Geelong since I was born. So yeah, this is my home. I've had 25 roughly Muay Thai fights, um, Australian champion, caged champion, um, and yeah, also had about 6 professional boxing fights. I've also, yeah, known your partner, Steve Moxon, for probably 10 years now. We used to train together. So, um, yeah, that's me, I guess, in a nutshell.
Beautiful. So Geelong is a community that you're passionate about. You said born and raised here. Do you want to speak to why you're passionate about supporting the youth within the community?
Yeah, I guess the youth in the community, I mean, growing up, I sort of had a few sort of role models and things like that. Obviously, there's been some good ones, some bad ones. Um, I guess the words good and bad aren't sort of appropriate sometimes, but um, I was sort of led in a gym full of guys that yeah were good role models in ways to improve my fitness, stay out of trouble, um, to sort of to guide my life into the person that I am today. So I think that was a really important part of myself growing up in the area, but also seeing you know, other people go the other way, which is, getting involved in drug use, um, you know, just all sorts of things that you can name. Um, and yeah, obviously I went to Winnington Primary School and Newcombe Secondary. So, um, I've lived in the Whittington area since I was young. So I have sort of seen that transition from the ones that have sort of come out and sort of been successful or had a fulfilling life, or the ones that have sort of gone down the other path of drug use and yeah, that sort of thing. So I think it's really important, even especially now, coming out of lockdowns and things like that as well. Um, the importance of trying to build that community back up. And um, there does seem to be, I guess, with the kids that I'm working with, there's a lot of domestic violence, um, domestic violence homes. So I guess we're just sort of checking in with them every week. And not that it's sort of reoccurring things that happen. It's sort of, they're kind of, I guess, mimicking their parents or something on it. And, they're having those outbursts at school, or they're having those outbursts at home with their parents. Um, and we're just sort of here to support them along the way. Um, I
Which is
guess
so
one of
important. Yeah, which is so important. I was just going to say, for so many of our children, we understand that the adaptive responses that they form in terms of the environment that they're in, or the way that they're raised, or things that they've experienced or witnessed, the adaptive responses that form are really, quite challenging. And for a lot of kids, we know their behavior isn't indicative of who they are. It is that adaptive response. And I was a classroom teacher for 10 years, and one of the things that I witnessed within schools, particularly for our young boys is that so much of the way that they're exhibiting or expressing the adaptive response, the frustration, the fears, the sadness, the anger, whatever it is, isn't really given space or isn't held in a way that is allowed within formal education settings. There's a lot of sit still, be quiet, don't do
Yeah.
that, you know? And so having a space that you have created like that, where not that, you know, they're coming in and tearing shit up at your gym. I know that that's not what happens, but to
Not yet.
have space and place where
Mm.
they're not required to just conform and to be so contained and constrained is so important, because if they don't have a supportive environment at home that
Yeah.
has the space, place, energy, understanding for them, and school just isn't that, where do our kids come to, right? And that's exactly what you're providing. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. It's sort of one of those things that, we kind of advertise it to the kids, I suppose, as doing the boxing as like the fun activity, and it's kind of cool for some of the young males. And of course, we've got like PlayStations and things like that. There's a lot of gamers and things like that now. So having that sort of fun aspect of it, but then also creating that like safe place of like, how are you feeling today? Like, where do you feel that in your body? And, what kind of story you're telling yourself today? And how would you rate your relationship with your mum today? Or how's it been this last week? What have you been up to, sort of thing. And some might say, oh, I'm actually relationship with mum's actually about a 5 out of 10 at the moment. And you're like, oh, okay, what's going on? And then you can sort of talk to them, and whilst you're sitting there, while they've got gloves on and you've got pads in your hands, and it's a safe place. There's not that many kids sort of at once in the gym, unless it's like our Wednesday night group social night. So I like it like that, where it's a bit more personalized and we're all just like one on one and talking and building that relationship with them. Um, so yeah, that's a really important aspect of what we do, I suppose. Yeah,
And one of the things that I'm hearing in what you're saying that I know is so important is giving these kids, teens, however old they are, the opportunity to know that somebody is interested in them as the person, the way that they feel, the experience they're having, not just on the exhibited behaviors or the things that they've done. So
yeah,
much of the way that we're kind of in conversation with kids about who they are and what's possible for them is reflecting on the things that they do, right? Which is
yeah,
symptomatic. And we have to allow ourselves to come back and deal with the whole child, not just the behavior. And I know this is so challenging for anybody
yeah,
listening that, has somebody in their life, a teen or a child that, is presenting significant challenge in terms of their behaviors. I know
yeah.
it's not easy, so I say this with kindness and a gentleness. But I think it's so important to highlight and raise that there needs to be time and space for these kids to be seen and heard in their experience, in their expression, in their perspective.
Yeah, definitely. Like if I guess there's a lot of like people aren't accepting, like you say, in schools and in classrooms and stuff like that. The teacher's not very accepting of their behaviors and things like that. So, of course, they're just gonna start gravitating towards like shame and guilt about how they feel and what they're doing, and they don't understand why they're doing it and things like that. But yeah, I guess the opposite to shame is actually empowerment. So, and that's us. So we're trying to empower you, and all right, we notice all these things that are going on and what are happening at home, and creating that safe place for them to talk about. So yeah, and then they're able to just come out and empower themselves to what they're doing.
Steve and I have a 4-year-old, God, he's almost 5-year-old son, Tyson.
Crazy.
I know, time flies. And one of the things that I'm conscious of establishing with him is that I do a lot of like side by side activity with him. So, like, I'll just sit down and be coloring in with him. We won't necessarily be talking, but I'm hoping to lay the foundations of having that close proximity to him where we're both doing a shared activity side by side, so that one day when there are challenges and I need to have that proximity, that closeness, we can be in shared activity together and it's not weird for him. He won't be like, why is mum trying to do something with me now? I want it to be like just something that's established in our relationship. And at 5 years old, coloring in or rolling cars along the floor or whatever it is where I'm at with it. Do you want to speak to, as kids get older, as they're teenagers, how and why it's so important for us not to be confrontational in the way that we're trying to connect with them? So I guess what I'm suggesting is sometimes our teenagers might be deeply uncomfortable if we try and sit knee to knee with them and say, like, let's have a chat.
Yeah.
And how supportive it can be, as you said before, to have the pads on or to be playing PlayStation or something. Can you touch on that and expand on that a little more?
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes it's a little bit funny when we have like the "Are you okay" days and things like that, because I understand that because I'm thinking if you ask someone that has trauma, or if you ask someone that has like an adolescent young person, for example, and you say, "Are you okay?" Their first instinct is, "Yep, fine. Yeah, leave me alone." Whatever. So, um, it's really important to be able to have that space for them, to not be so to be so onto them. Um, so, if there's things going on, they might be having like a bit of anxiety about being at the gym or something. It's not jumping on them to try fix them straight away. It's sort of creating that space. Um, all right, mate, let's go. We'll go play PlayStation for a little bit. What do you reckon? Like that sort of like non-direct, like not sitting in front of them trying to hassle them, because they've always had psychologists or counselors or things like that sort of sit in front of them and ask them questions. The question they will allow it to sort of come as we do activities and as we sort of go along, like you're saying, like drawing and things like that. Maybe your son might pop up a question or something like that as you're doing the activity together. You know what I mean? Just allowing it to sort of come. It's really important. Otherwise, I guess the turtle shell just closes in, and become avoidant, and they don't want anything to do with it, and then they're never going to come back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think
That
it's
place.
really important to highlight. The other thing I'd love you to speak on, if you can, is as the mentor, the coach, the caregiver, whoever it is, as the kind of trusted elder
Yeah,
in the dynamic of the relationship that we're forming, how important it actually is to first concentrate on how regulated you are yourself before you try and offer yourself as support to somebody else. Can you speak on how important that is to really be taking care of yourself so you can take care of others? And maybe if you have anything to share on how you do that for yourself, how you make yourself available to be a support.
yeah, definitely. That's a very good one. Because often, yeah, sometimes we don't look after ourselves, and sometimes we do have to check in with ourselves. I guess one thing that I like to do is literally just do that check in, which is what sort of give to young people as well, is to check in with yourself, checking in with your body. What do I need? What's going on for me? I actually I think last time I seen your husband Steve was actually at a basketball game. So we have like a Thursday social game that we play, and it's just the best because um, just get to hang out with the boys, play a bit of basketball. So I guess that's my sort of retreat at the moment. I'm starting boxing tonight again at Tony Salter's. So I haven't actually been able to train for a long time, having empowerment and having a daughter and things like that. You're giving to your daughter and your partner a lot, especially in the first year. So I'm able to have that sort of space now, which is really good. So yeah.
Yeah. Bless you. It is challenging. It is always challenging to find that time for ourselves, but it's such an important thing to highlight. And I'm a strong advocate for each of us taking exceptional care of ourselves because we can only give what we've got to give, and longevity and our capacity to show up long term for our communities is so, so important. So I'm really happy to hear that you're doing that for yourself. I think,
Yeah.
particularly those of us who enjoy exercise, who benefit from movement, which is basically everybody. But, those of us, particularly in the fitness industry, we go through, really benefiting from it and prioritizing it for ourselves. And then it becomes our work and it falls away
Yeah.
from us. It falls away. And it can be a deeply depressing thing to be giving what you really love to everybody else and not having it for yourself, and I
Yeah.
think that's particularly when we became parents as well, we found that as well. I had the biggest FOMO after I had my son because I went from being in the gym every single day, like
Yeah.
twice a day, to being like just in charge of the social media and being sent all the photos of everybody training so that I could like promote what everybody was doing. And I was sitting there in the dark holding my baby, like, fuck everyone. Fuck you all, feeling so far removed from my
Yeah.
space and place. And so I just share this and highlight this because I think it's really important for us to check in with ourselves when we've moved into a next stage of life, or we've started a business, or we're doing something else, to ask, like, how much of myself and my own well-being has been compromised in order to do this.
Yeah.
And it is needed and necessary sometimes that we make that compromise, but like you're recognizing for yourself now, okay, it's time for me to take a little bit back for myself.
Yeah. I guess when we sort of check in with ourselves, we're like noticing that something's not right. So that's where we've got to make a change. If we're noticing that things aren't right and we're still doing the same thing again, then, like we're just going to have the same results again. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's important to make that change, literally.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Good on you. Good on you. How has your perspective changed, do you think, since you've become a parent?
um, oh, I guess, yeah, with Amari being so young, I guess I am looking into the future a lot. I do work with like, a few teen girls and things like that. And sometimes it does worry me, but I think, I can't get too ahead of myself, I guess. Um, yeah, I guess it's raising your daughter right. It's raising, your sons right. It's teaching teaching her values. And I guess she can't even really talk yet, so but she can walk, and she's pretty good at that. Um, so yeah, I guess adding in the little thoughts that I have about, how would I want my daughter to be treated and things like that. So, um, especially with the guys and things like that, if they have any comments about women or things like that, it's just straight away like I wouldn't want my daughter to be hearing that, or you know um, copying that. I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Can hear Steve walk. You can come say hello if you'd like, Steve. You can hear him hovering around. Yeah,
Get in the room. Hey.
Oh, he can't come in. Oh, he can't. He's saying hello. He's waving. Um,
here you go.
he said good. I found for myself too that once I had my own child, right? And I was a teacher before I had Tyson. So I was already very conscious of the way that, I was speaking to children and the impact and influence that I could have on young people. But after I had my son, I really took my sense of personal responsibility in the community up a notch. You're right.
Yeah.
We've all got
Go.
it. Kane's got someone walking in as well. We've all got people around us. We're both like, get out, get out. Um, that we are responsible for the way that we're treating young people within the community, because I know one day that my son is going to be looking to other people to inform his sense of self in the world.
Yeah.
And I think, we all can fall into the habit of just thinking about our child, our home, our immediate circle. But it is so needed and necessary for us all to kind of widen our perspective and consider what mark are we making on the wider community. And so I thank you so much for creating a business that really takes into consideration what our
Yeah.
kids need, particularly teenage boys, because I think it is a needed and necessary part of the community, Kane. So this is why it just makes me so happy to celebrate what you're doing and to highlight what you're doing. And I'd love if you could take a moment just to let people know how they might best contact you if they know a young person who would benefit from what you're offering.
Yeah, definitely. I just like to add on that. But now I've lost my train of thought because I've had people walking in and out. I'm like, why are you walking in and out? Get out of here. um, you'll have to refresh my memory again. Yeah, so I guess we do work with like a lot of young males, but I do have some young females, and to be honest, there's a lot of young females that do need boxing and the outlet and the talking and things like that. And yes, without saying it in a way, I don't know how to say it, but there is a lot of some of the girls that I do have. There is a lot of there is actually a few fights that go on with a lot of the female community. So trying to combat that would be it's pretty hard. I guess with the young males, like there is maybe a few fights and things to like with sort of their environment. Um, but then when you've got the young females, it's sort of there's a lot more. I guess I don't know why, but there just seems to be like that's the case at the moment. So I think it's really important for young females to have that outlet. Um, so yeah, I don't know. You can probably cut that bit out, but yeah.
No, I'm not
I'm
cutting
just trying
anything. No, I will
I'm
never cut
just trying to
anything. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think about the best way to say this because I don't want to be like a female versus male. But yeah,
Yeah. And I think, young women really are struggling. There's a lot of programs that, I personally run that addresses just this,
yeah,
that young women in particular, have so many mixed messages. We've always had mixed messages now. And I think the rise of social media has, really amplified a lot of what young women struggle with. And there needs to be that place and space for support and embodied expression and a safe outlet for all of the things that they're kind of feeling and processing and working through as well. And again, I always circle back to how important it is to role model community building to our young people, to
yeah,
having these established relationships and connections. I was telling somebody today, Cain, I've got time to do a podcast with this guy, Cain. He runs this boxing business. And they were like, in Geelong. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, but isn't he a competition? And I was like, fuck, that doesn't even exist in my world. Like, we're all just here doing our best, trying to support the community. None of us can do it alone. And I think even just you and I sitting down and having a conversation, like, it contributes to people understanding what it means to be a supportive community member, that we're each just trying to like support each other side by side to build each other up. And
yeah,
for a lot of us and a lot of what's in the media, we don't always have clear examples of that. And so I think it's really important that where possible, we're not just supporting individuals, which is important. We're also really role modeling, that community building aspect, that
yeah,
support, showing how to create sustainable, healthy relationship between people. Really
yeah,
important.
yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that our friend Kate Davison actually said to me is like when I first started, there was a few things I was like I wasn't sure about, and um, I said a few things like there's this and this and this, and she's like you need to be maybe you're not living by your values. And when I had a look, and that's literally like what acceptance commitment therapy is like guiding your life by your values and all that thing. Um, and she's like, you need to be going by your values. I'm like, yeah, I do. So there was a few adjustments that I had to make, and to go by my values rather than trying to just be I guess, being a business owner and trying to crunch down and trying to do this and trying to get into it. It was more so, okay, what are we doing here? Why are we doing it? Um, and then just building on that sort of thing. And like, yeah, I know all the young people here. I talk to all of them. Um, they all know me, and um, we're all friendly and things like that. So that's sort of what we've created, you know what I mean? It's not me in the background that no one's ever seen before, just pulling strings. It's, I'm here, I'm talking to them, I'm engaging with every single one of them. And it's just bit by bit, young person, that comes in and, yeah, just living the business by the values. So, yeah.
Beautiful, Kane. I thank you very much for your example. I thank you for your energy and your time today. I'm going to link all of Kane's details in the show notes. So if you are local to Geelong and you want to get in touch, you'll be able to do that easily. Or even I know if you're beyond Geelong and you just have questions, both Kane and I are always open to having conversations with people that need support, and we can refer you if we can't support you. Thank you so much, Kane.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.